Well, good morning. I hope you all are doing well this morning. I hope some of the children are enjoying what little snow is left. As you can see, I'm all bundled up here to enjoy the wonderful weather. We've got blue sky behind me, as you can see. It is going to be another glorious day. Well, let us begin by looking at our next Song of Ascent, Psalm 122. A Song of Ascents of David. I was glad when they said to me, "Let us go to the house of the Lord. Our feet have been standing within your gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem built as a city that is bound firmly together, to which the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, as was decreed for Israel, to give thanks to the name of the Lord. There thrones for judgment were set, the thrones of the house of David. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May they be secure who love you. Peace be within your walls and security within your towers. For my brothers and companions' sake, I will say, peace be with you. For the sake of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek your good." So here's the next Song of Ascent. And you'll notice I began with saying a Song of Ascents of David. It's so important to remember as you look at the Psalms that the titles of the Psalms are given for a purpose. And for instance, this one, what do we know about this? Well, it's one of the Song of Ascents, but more importantly, we also know who the author is, of David. This is not just a random pilgrim. This is a particular pilgrim. This is the King of Israel singing a pilgrim song. And it should make a greater impact on us. Because as he praises Jerusalem, you will notice it has very little to do with his reign, with his throne, with his power. Instead, we can divide this psalm up into three ways: David's joy, David's praise, and David's prayer. The first one, David's joy. We find that in verses 1 and 2. He says this, "I was glad when they said to me, 'Let us go to the house of the Lord.'" Notice it's not his palace. It's not returning home, but to the temple of the Lord. He is delighted to return to Jerusalem, for there is the house of the Lord. And as you can remember, in David's time, the temple was not built. The temple was not built. There were plans, but it was going to be his son that was going to build the temple. So David would be returning to Jerusalem, and it would be to a tent, to the tent of meeting. And yet he was glad to be going to Jerusalem, for there, the house of the Lord. And then we come in beginning in verse 3 to David's praise for the city. Now, I don't know about you, but I grew up in the country. And one of the great joys was once a month, we drove to the big city of Victoria, British Columbia. And then one of the greater joys was every few months we'd get to take the ferry, an hour and a half ferry ride to the mainland to go to Vancouver and to see the big city. It was quite the experience to go from the country to the bustling cities. Well, here this pilgrim is David, the one who dwelt in Jerusalem. And his praise as he returns to Jerusalem, we have to notice what his praise is about. We find that in verse 4. "To Jerusalem, to which the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, as was decreed for Israel, to give thanks to the name of the Lord." His praise for the city is for the unity, because it was the central focus of all these tribes. And as you read in the Old Testament, the tribes didn't get along. They were like a big extended family. There were squabbles, there was division, there were fights. But David focuses saying, to the Jerusalem we are called to go, to be united in the worship of our God. And so he praises it. Then he continues, if you'll notice, he talks about the thrones of David. Not only is he praising God for the unity, but he recognizes that from this place there will be justice for the nation. And so he praises Jerusalem for the worship that is found within the walls and the justice that is to come from there. And therefore, we have David's prayer at the very end. Notice how it begins. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May they be secure who love you. Peace be within your walls and security within your towers. For my brothers and companions' sake, I will say, peace be within you. For the sake of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek your good. His prayer is for peace. But notice again, it's not peace for his reign. It's not peace for his household, that his throne will continue forever and ever. His concern is peace for those who worship his God. His concern is that there would be unity, that there would be well-being for those who worship the one true and living God. And think of how this song of ascent can help us in this time where we can no longer gather for corporate worship. Lord willing, it will be a very short time in the length of our lifetime. But we should pray the same as David. And when we return to corporate worship, this should continue to be our prayer. That we pray for peace and well-being for God's people, for all who profess the true faith and their children, that there would be peace amongst them. See, this peace isn't about worldly peace. It's about shalom. As a matter of fact, what's interesting, when you go to verse 6, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, it would be in Hebrew, shalom, Jerusalem. Peace for the city of peace. This is his prayer. Peace for the city of peace. And it should be ours as well. In the midst of these trying times, and when there is prosperity in our lives, when everything is going well, what should be our first focus of our prayers? That there is peace and well-being for our brothers and companions' sake, all who seek the Lord, all who profess the true faith. So here's my challenge to all of us. What's our central focus in our prayers? As families and as individuals, today when you gather together around your table and when you are praying privately, what is your central focus of your prayers? Because as we read this psalm, we grasp what it should be. Peace for the people of God. Peace for all who profess the true faith. And that peace comes about by unity. Because we all delight in the one true and living God. We all hope in the same salvation. So why would we not want peace? Oh, brothers and sisters, there's a reason why the New Testament speaks strongly against grumbling and complaining and divisiveness. Oh, that should not be in the church of God. Instead, we should look at this psalm and go, this is the way of the pilgrims. This is the way King David prayed, and this is the way we are to pray. For Christ is our peace. As Ephesians declares, Christ is our peace, and therefore we should pray for peace for one another. Oh, let us be a people of peace, rejoicing in the worship of our God. May God bless you today.